All right, now we're in.
Oh,
yep.
Okay. Wait, is that after the opening or before the opening?
It's after the opening.
Okay, so now we're actually going.
Yeah, I did the opening this time, like actually in the thing.
Okay.
Oh.
So, hey everyone!
Yay,
Thanks for joining us. I wish we were here to play some games, but unfortunately, we're not. And that's just how it's going to be for a bit. So, I think I'm looking to the camera. I'm not sure because it's a webcam.
Camera.
I know where the camera is.
Should I make you an arrow?
Is
I'm going to
it
make
straight?
a big arrow sign. Bryce,
is
camera
it right
is
there?
here.
But which way is it? Like, is Madeleine the focus? So should I go like this when I'm talking?
There's no focus. It's a webcam.
Exactly.
What do you want from me?
I don't even know how they work.
How do
Magnets.
webcams?
I'm waving so I can find where.
See?
You're there.
There we
See?
go.
We're super tiny.
I'm in the glare from the window.
You are a glare from the window.
A memoir.
The bright spot of our life.
I'm going to close the blinds.
Like settings on Skype or whatever as well.
Sharon, our technical director, is great.
Is awesome.
I don't know how you could be a technical director
Boom.
by being so great with computers.
It's by Googling every problem you ever have. That's how.
That's true. All right, Mark can barely hear you.
I will go turn up my volume.
All right, let's see if that helps.
Yeah.
So again, thanks all for being here.
Oh, wow.
I'm hoping everyone's staying safe and washing their hands. So that's good. Tonight we're joined by Mark, the Bandit King Thompson, and Steven,
In this corner.
Guy Without Pants Payne. Oh man, because someone happens to be in a studio, we will get Rebecca the train.
Yeah.
Yay!
I heard
So,
a train.
just remember everyone, it's the Bandit King's fault. That being said,
That's how I'm in the forest.
those forest trains are everywhere.
The forest trains, man.
Okay, so spoilers for the movie we're about to watch. I like to think it's just the Bandit King, like, haunting that one spot.
Ooh.
I'm sure all these people that are tuning in to watch this have never seen it before. And
Nah.
The whole new experience.
There's a whole new world.
You guys spoiled Demon Hunters for me, so...
Which one?
The first one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we did. I think we just assumed that you'd already seen it.
Which is
No,
fair.
I was bad. I hadn't seen any of them.
So, tonight, with the Bandit King and Guy Without Pants, we're going to be watching The Gamers. And then we're going to be watching Revamping Doyle. Mm-hmm. So, I hope you guys are buckled in for that. I think we got all the technical kinks out, so you guys will be able to hear everything fine. We'll find out if that's true.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in either the Discord or the Twitch chat. And if they don't see them, one of us will see them, and we'll get you the answer if we know it.
Yeah.
There's a high probability we might not know it. Just be prepared.
We are happy to guess, though.
Oh, I'll make a bunch of crap
Oh, yeah.
up.
All right.
So without further ado, Sharon's going to press play.
Gonna press play.
Mark, your audio still isn't the best, I guess.
How do I sound now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. We can. I don't know about...
Chat, can you hear Mark? Mark, do more talking.
Talk. This is me talk.
Why are you still so loud?
Yeah.
Or quiet?
Huh.
Is it because you need to turn Skype up, Sharon?
Shouldn't. Skype
All right.
should be as
So
loud
I guess
as...
the question is Steven also quiet for you guys?
How about that? Am I louder now?
And there's the train.
Oh, making it...
Come here, settings
appearance.
window.
So, you know
It's-
I'm on.
Yeah.
It's extra pissed that it hasn't been heard
All right.
the last couple
Seriously.
weeks.
Okay, so both of you guys are quiet, so it makes me think that the Skype is the quiet part, so you might need to edit or change that.
Yeah, I'll fix it in post.
Fix it in post.
Merc says we should just full stop to fix this.
Yeah. Okay.
So just
All right. Noise does need to be made. We're going to take a pause and fix this because this is a 45-minute movie and we have time to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
what? You said full stop, to be honest.
No, he didn't. That's Merc.
I know, and I told her that.
Well,
Or,
no, she can't hear Steve, full stop. She just completely can't hear Steve. Bryce.
Oh.
I will continue to ramble for a minute because that's what I can do.
Do it.
So, I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
Ooh.
It's a story about a talking snake and a lever that stops the world. So, once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there was a guy. His name just happened to be Mark, but he was driving through the forest one day and he came
Happened
across
to be.
this lever in the woods. And right next to it was a snake. And he was wondering, I wonder what this lever does. And was about to pull it, and all of a sudden the snake spoke up and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't pull that lever. That's the lever that stops the world. And Mark was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I don't know what's better. The lever that stops the world or a talking snake? So he went and got a couple of friends, brought them back, and they're sitting there going, wow, I don't know about that whole lever that stops the world thing. It couldn't be. Unless you pull it and you find out, and we're not going to do that. But, hey, talking snake, we could make big bucks off of this. So he goes ahead and sets up a little trail where you can go ahead and hike up and see the lever that stops the world and the talking snake. And
And we're talking snake has a name, right?
he does. I was just going to say that. And throughout the course of this, they find out that the snake's name is Nate. And they're like, you know what? That's not too bad. We got a talking snake, Nate, and the lever that stops the world. And so they get this trail going, and people are going up there, and they're actually making pretty good enough that they go ahead and pave the trail. And now that's even more people are coming, so they go ahead and put a big parking lot down below. And eventually it gets to the point where the limiting factor is actually the height. So they actually go ahead and take the road and just have the road go all the way up there. So as they're doing this, they're getting pretty good, and people can go up and park right up there, right next to it, and get out and look and see the lever that stops the world, and actually talk to Nate for a bit. Well, eventually it gets to the point where, they're in it for the money now, and they want to go ahead and see how many cars they can get through. So instead of actually having a parking lot up there, they just have kind of like a drive-through where you drive up and you can see it and talk to them for a bit and then turn around and drive back. It's a little U-turn up there. And so they're going and going, and they're getting at first, a couple hundred cars a day. Eventually they get up to a couple thousand cars a day. Then they're getting up to almost 1,000 cars an hour. So if you can imagine, they're just flying through there. No time to talk and stop to anyone. So Mark's on his way back up to the top of the hill, and he's going to go ahead and actually get out and park and talk to Nate for a bit. But as he's going up the hill, he realizes, as he's getting ready to start slowing down, he realizes the brakes aren't working on his car. And he's thinking, uh-oh, this is a problem. I mean, I'm heading straight at
Where are
the
they coming
snake
from,
and the
Sharon?
lever that stops the world. I'm going to end up hitting one of them. What do I do? Do I hit the snake and kill our moneymaker? Because that's what people really want to see. Or do I hit the lever and turn it and possibly stop the world and everyone fall off? And the snake lever, and eventually he decides to hit the snake. Because the moral of the story is, better Nate than lever.
Yay!
That was a
first
fantastic
that story.
story.
About the same
need
time
another one?
I met Steven.
I got a couple more. By a couple
Nothing
more, I
can
I
top
can do this
Nate or
like
lever.
all week.
You know where I first heard that story, Steven?
Huh.
Steve Rummage. Steve Rummage told it at Camp Thunderbird.
That is where I found it.
That's where we met. Only then we
Yeah.
forgot about it and didn't know it for like
Yep.
3 more years.
Was it Thunderbird or Hobus that we met at?
This up.
I don't know. You were both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then probably Hobus would have been where we met.
Yeah. I was only at Thunderbird for a short period, for the one summer,
Yeah.
but lots of fun.
Are they still echoey?
Can
Liv?
everyone hear? So, we are going to be watching The Gamers
Hey, Catherine.
live in front of a bunch of people,
Okay.
and we're streaming so they can all see you wave. And we can see
Yay!
Mark, and
You're on TV, Kathy.
Introduce people.
Future actor right there.
That was my daughter, Catherine, who
Touch.
incidentally was not alive when we made this movie.
Ah,
Incident.
Yeah.
this is important information.
Put the age of the movie in perspective here for a minute.
Her godfather is the writer and director, right?
Yes. Mr. Wansel. A.K.A. Limping Ox.
So, question.
A.K.A. Dormithrax the Indestructible.
The best character ever. So I was looking at the DVD version I have of The Gamers, and there's somebody in the middle. Is that Vansel? Holding a sword? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's...
He is also Hunk the Barbarian.
Yeah.
You stupid bastards.
Yeah. That is the language that he and his father made up Norse-Vigen.
Yes.
And it's wonderful.
That makes me so happy.
They made up the accent and a whole language and everything.
Oh,
And not just that, they actually have a national anthem.
And where might I find this national anthem?
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
You would have to talk to Mr. Vansel.
Ooh.
Even more
The
incentive.
best way to hear that national anthem is to be in some sort of social setting where both Matt and his father are present and ply them both with copious amounts of alcohol.
Huh.
Yes.
I know
Beer
what my
works well.
holiday plan is.
Right?
Worth it.
All right, we're going to hit play on this. I may twiddle with volume as people complain in the chat about volume issues, but we're going to proceed. So complain away, chat.
Complain away.
Man, I want the Dwarmithrax dance so bad.
I want that musical number.
The High Road dance.
It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that is an
It's got
awesome.
moves, man.
Well, there's credits and stuff going, everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, since we had Steve here, I was going to ask him about his sweet, sweet demon hunting days. But the story's starting, so here we are.
Oh my gosh, I never realized she... What? Who was that a picture of?
The background?
Yeah. It looks like the guy who played Horatio Hornblower. I can't remember the actor's name.
Probably.
Doesn't surprise me.
I mean, it's a bunch of theater students, so...
Yeah, I'm like, well, who knows?
That is a true statement.
Sure.
I'm just
Hit us
hoping
with
volume's good for everybody.
chat.
I'm gonna try to
Got
turn this
chat
up
on
later.
the phone, so
Yeah.
hit us with questions if you've got them as we go through this.
Nerds.
Yes.
Yeah, nerds.
Just make it a ding to let us know that I got something to answer.
Okay, I'll do that.
Bryce will ding.
Yeah, because I don't have the chat, so.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So just listen for the dinging of the Bryce.
Whose dorm room was that?
That was the actual dorm room.
So it's in Hinderley. It's in the basement of Hinderley, but I don't know whose actual dorm room that was.
Yeah, there's about 30 PLU students involved in this, particularly in this part of the filmmaking process. So
Yes.
it could have been any one of theirs, whoever happened to be in the Hinderley Hall in the basement at that time, and just down the hall from the whatever they call it, the gathering room, where everybody would get together and actually would use it for this purpose. Neither Steve nor I attended PLU. Report is the fact that neither one of us went there. Out of the 17 people that founded the company Dead Gentlemen, there was only 4 of us, I think, that didn't, maybe 5 of us that didn't attend PLU.
Who were the other 3?
2 of us are Steve and I.
So who were the
Yeah,
other 3?
I was a member of the PLU Film Society. Well, not
Phil
a
Woodard.
PLU.
Yeah, Phil Woodard. Steven was Vance's best friend in high school, so he brought himself and Phil and myself into the group. And then Ben had a couple of his friends, Sean and Mike, from Indiana that moved out after they graduated, moved out to Washington to help him make films and come hang out with them and stuff. So both Vancel and Ben brought high school friends into the group. I didn't actually know him in high school. I met Steven while everybody was in college, but
technically we met
well,
before.
yes, we did. But
Didn't put 2 and 2 together until quite a bit later.
Yeah, we worked at summer camp together on a staff of 50. We were 2 of the staff working together for an entire summer, and then figured that out like 3 years later when we were gaming together.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just read that again in recap, then, shall we?
Well, because we knew each other. Actually, we did know each other, but we just never put together we were at camp together.
Right.
I fear for the life.
Yeah, we knew each other by the time Demon Hunters was rolling. That was when I saw Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do have a question.
Excellent.
Why is there a director's cut of this film?
He has threatened to throw her.
Because we're currently watching the director's cut. I don't remember if we mentioned
That is true.
Yeah.
You are the princess's own.
I don't remember. What did we change?
Oh, you just added scenes, and then there's a
special
family-friendly
effects.
version?
Elven Archer, an
I
ambassador.
think it was mostly the addition of the special effects and
Okay.
some re-rendering and processing. Because when we started making this, VHS was like what everybody had,
Yeah.
and DVDs were kind of a new thing, and so
Digital
we saw
editing
more
was
VHSs than
very,
DVDs
very out there.
in the original publication of it.
Only you can save the princess.
I just
And then
know that there's-
the director's cut mostly has special features and stuff like that added to it, but we also redid some special effects. With
Yeah, and there's like added scenes that aren't in, because this version's like 3 minutes longer than
We should speak with the folk in the
the
comments
original
first.
version.
They may know what
Yeah.
awaits us to the south.
I agree with you.
But I mean, the director's cut is what I've seen the most because it's
All
the
right.
one that I have on
The
DVD.
common room is full of travelers and a few towns.
I still have the VHS.
Oh God!
I have no way to play the VHS.
Oh, I do. Let's have a VCR.
The barmaid warns you.
I also still have the animated Hobbit on VHS.
Which is
and the Tiger
terrifying.
Galaxy on VHS.
Rogar Stan is 18. There's only a 10% chance he'll be affected.
The only thing I own on VHS is a horrible high school
Roll
rendition
your stamina.
telling of The Hobbit, where I played a lot of stupid roles, and it is the worst thing I've ever been a part of.
I have a lot of VHS because I have a
Ever.
VHS player that actually.
That's
works.
a body double. If you didn't catch that, by the way, the guy that passes out. That was a reshoot for some reason that we didn't get the shot originally of him just downing the beer, and so Shimkus actually isn't in this moment in there. But that's
You
actually a
found
body
some
double.
other giant ginger to put in there?
Yeah, the guy that
I
plays.
remember dyeing his hair for that.
Yeah, the guy that plays Albrecht in
There's only one patron.
Demon
Hey, look,
Hunters.
there's someone that looks a little familiar.
Hey.
Who's that guy? Do you still
It's
have
hairstyle.
that?
I should have brought my. I don't think I got the wool coat anymore.
That's what I was going to ask about your sweet carpet thing you got going on.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a mob.
It might actually be.
Yeah, I don't know where we got that one. Did you provide that one yourself?
Okay, roll it.
No, I didn't. I made the armbands.
So the majority of the costumes of everybody in it were provided by a combination of Jen Page and myself providing stuff that we already had access to, and then stitching and creating other things in our spare time, like, you know, as we were like driving to the set, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we'll get to the gate later and the
But
ballistic
like
here.
most of what Nimble and New Moon are wearing are mine. Yeah, there's a lot of the costume. I did a lot of the costume work on this.
Quite finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, and man, keeping a straight face during that shoot, it eventually resorted to threats on my life to try and get a straight take.
I'm not surprised.
No.
Really hard to sit there and keep a straight face when you guys on behind you snapping pants.
Like he literally knew what was happening. There was nothing happening. He couldn't see it behind him, and Steve's just sitting there, and all he has to do is sit there and ignore everything for like 45 seconds. And he could not. It was so much. It just kept busting up. He couldn't keep a straight face.
Well, it was the snapping of the pants.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look at the beginning of this, you can see that I got a little bit of a smirk at the very, very beginning. But after about a dozen or so takes, it was the best that we had. So we went with that. And that is Mr. Mansell
In Norwegian.
Yes.
in his Norwegian.
So this is my friend's favorite character in the entire movie.
Pretty good.
Did Hunk see Nimble at the bar?
God.
Nimble was
So Steve, what did you do all on the film? Because Mark told me you did a lot more behind the scenes than I realized.
Yes. Yeah, so I helped out just general prop hand grip guy, helping hold mics and stuff like that. I also went ahead and made some of the props. So, for example, my armbands, the decoration on the scabbard for Rogar's sword, I did that.
The sword of the decapitation.
Good point.
Yep.
I'll use my
I went ahead and I did the gate, so some of the other stuff like that. The ballista here coming up, which I was really frustrated with that ballista because I couldn't. And Phil Woodard, one of the other guys that was not a PLU graduate, was helping me with this, but we could not get it to actually shoot more than a couple feet.
Really?
And we were getting really frustrated by that because
here's the thing. It's a prop. It's not supposed to shoot. Vansel loves telling this story because he's like, hey, can you guys make this ballista? And he thought they understood that it didn't actually need to fire, but the two of them, both being kind of engineering geeks, were like calculating out how to build it and design it, and they made a working ballista.
Yeah. So a quasi-working ballista. It only shoots a couple feet, but it was, and Vansel didn't realize that until afterwards, and yeah, he's made some several choice comments about me positioning a working ballista behind him like that.
Yeah, because mind you, not only was it not expecting to be a working ballista, but he's the one getting shot by it.
Yes.
Well, that's
yes.
264 points of damage.
And in all fairness, that is a Scorpio, not a ballista. That is something that we learned after the fact, but
run out of the end. Occasionally,
and yes, for chat, if you missed before the film started, we were talking about that is Vansel's Norwegian accent that he and his dad developed, and there's a national anthem that goes along with it, and the whole language and everything.
And a whole lot of Sven and Ole jokes that are really bad.
Yeah.
If you thought Nate and the Lever was bad, oh man, you have to.
Look at man, those special effects.
So
they were in the normal DVD.
Welcome to the director's cut.
You know, there's actually special effects in here that you don't even realize. The building that they're leaving, the town that they're leaving, is Fort Nisqually.
Yeah.
Only it's actually digitally like enlarged and duplicated and altered quite a bit, which was a lot of fancy special effects for the time, because you didn't have like, you know, the ability to just key out a color or anything. We had to like go in and by hand like draw in where things went and like lay the picture on top of it, and it's a lot of work. Ben Dobbins was kind of a genius. I mean, still is kind of a genius, and the work he did in the editing and stuff. And this is my camera work here. This is some of the camera work that I did, was climbing the tree to get the weird angled shots and stuff.
I have a story about you in a tree later. Just so you're aware.
You do.
And so
Special effect took some work.
This also the Demon Hunter's fire?
Demon Hunters 2.
Demon Hunters 2 fire. Yeah.
Don was telling us that they had to go back and do like a reshoot during the filming of the Gamers to get a shot for the Demon Hunters 2 campfire thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that. We might have done that there. This is down in Oregon.
Please save me. I am imprisoned in a cell.
I got both my kids here watching now.
Sweet.
Well,
the more the merrier.
Yeah.
And that is my old bow before it broke.
Yes, it is amazing. For you, where are you, mysterious lady? Who holds you prisoner?
Emily.
The shadow, the shadow.
Of his knife fan.
I know.
This is my favorite gag in all of the movies.
I love it.
Am I still unconscious? Like,
Yeah.
I used to have a T-shirt that said that. It was my
I still have
favorite.
the t-shirt. It's like worn out, and like the collar's all chewed up and everything from being washed so many times. I wear it all the time.
Yeah, it was my favorite. Because it's also a thing that happens in like every game I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
Every single one.
My still unconscious thing. It's like one of the more key gamer moments. How did they not stab themselves by falling unconscious? Well, we had like an air mattress, if I remember right, down below them, but mostly they're just dropping out of frame. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Day after day, 4 of you.
You don't have to actually fall to fall out of frame. Thank goodness.
Oh, don't forget Mark.
Yeah. He was
After a week's
standing
journey,
kind of staring
you come
off
to a
into the
river
distance
that blocks your path.
in a bush.
Oh yeah.
Okay, this is my second favorite gag. I have a lot of favorite gags in this movie.
This is my
There's a lot
favorite
of good
gag.
ones.
It's so
Vancel
good.
really just finds, all the gaming for every gag you could and put them all into one short film, and
It worked.
it's what made the company exist and work and everything.
It connects
I just
really,
remember
really
we had a
well.
lot of people. I still remember we had a lot of people when we first made this that thought we were making fun of gamers in a negative way, and it's like, no, this is our people. We are these. There's a reason we have these characters in there. I'm Rogar, and in fact, one of my characters was Rogar before this in a different campaign.
And after as well.
And after as well.
Yep.
Dude.
He was a dwarven barbarian, though, not a.
Aren't you forgetting something?
Was he a prince?
North Walker tribe or whatever.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But that's that character is based on Steven's logo.
I just like the, oh yeah, that's right. And then
Every single time.
My important
and Mark.
character backstory moment.
That's still a gag that never gets old.
Well,
With that.
What?
I punch him in the head.
And I love how the solution immediately goes to, we're gonna knock him out.
Knock him unconscious.
Yeah.
Well, it's an 18 thing. It's the old Mr. T gag. We're all Gen Xers, or we're just barely on the cusp of Gen X. We all grew up watching the A-Team, and that was what you did when you couldn't deal with it. You knocked Mr. T out.
No, but you took another 4 damage.
Like the timing of these scenes with the voiceover of like the real world is, I think, one of my favorite things about the style of this movie, because it plays into the meta aspect of it so well.
One of my favorite things is you get the dice roll sound effect.
Yeah.
Like right as something happens.
That would be nice to change the audio editing into it.
Yeah.
How did they do the timing on that? How, like, did they have the audio from the other scene like playing while they pantomimed, or?
No, you just do. It's just an editing. You just put the two pieces together in post.
Yeah.
So what was
In fact, they may have recorded the lines after the fact when they went back and were speaking to the rough cut of the film.
Okay.
19.
What exactly was dropped?
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
I made a body. We dressed it in Justin's costume, and it was a pillow, and I don't remember what all I stitched together, but Jen and I put something together and taped it up and stitched it and made it into a body and dropped it off a train trestle.
Yeah.
Oh, we can see the train trestle. We got.
Right. Yeah.
Shadow,
Well,
yeah.
The timing was really bad because we'd been filming for a while and we were getting ready to go do the train trestle, and all of a sudden the clouds went away and shadows appeared. And it was like, damn it, that's bad timing. The rest of the day it was cloudy, and so we had this beautiful lighting, and right when we didn't want any shadows was when the shadows all appeared.
Tight. That seems to be a theme in the movie.
Not with a budget of $500 for the entire film. We weren't exactly going to do a reshoot.
No. Okay, this is something that I've always been curious about, and I always forget. On the character stat screen, there's GLE.
Guile.
Lee.
What's it?
Guile.
Guile.
Okay. We've been calling it Glee for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Guile. So at the time that this was being made, we didn't get the rights. We we had a couple contacts, but we were all a bunch of nobodies, either still in college or just out of college, and so didn't manage to get the rights or anything like that. So Vancel made up a system and put Guile in there so that it wasn't too close to D&D as a concept for another stat. And it was based on something he'd done when he was younger. And of course, once this came out and went to Gen Con and went to the Hawaii International Film Festival and won awards and got people's attention, at that point, we got so much kind of recognition and reputation that it was super easy, and Ben and Matt and everybody started making all these contacts with TSR and Wizard, all that kind of stuff. And so now we have all the contacts. We just go to people and say, hey, can we do this? And they're like, yeah, we'd love you to use our product in your film. And so that's why the later ones are actually licensed products and stuff.
Before a big scene.
Oh, listen close,
on.
listen close.
My helmet's too small. Oh
too big.
It's too big.
My helmet's too big.
I keep thinking it's so small.
We specifically put that audio back in and made sure that was in there because Ben and I just both just thought it was like they were all the extras were instructed to just like kind of make like you're saying something, you're growling, you're doing whatever, do something just kind of creative, come up with something, and the one guy is just like, I'm gonna get you, my helmet's too big.
Question for you from chat.
Ben and I up so much that we just left it in when we were editing.
Well, because it's hilarious. But, let's see. Burp.
Well, that's beside the point. I would naturally expect an ambush in...
Red Logarithm asks, on a budget of 500, how much did you end up making?
On the budget of 500, how much what?
What was the gross? Or how much?
Oh, I don't remember the total figures, and it's probably changed because, of course, it's like on Amazon and YouTube, and so there's income there. But in the general DVD and VHS sales, while I was still kind of running the financial side of it, so up until about 2003 or 2002, something like that, we brought in about $50,000.
It's pretty good return.
Paying for the costs. Sold, I don't remember how many 100,000 DVDs and VHS, something like that. And we were shipping them all out of our office in Tacoma.
Oh, I remember packing all those with Evan.
Look, it's me!
Your shoulders are so less pointy now, though.
Are they?
Yeah.
It was brand new. It's 20 years old now.
See, that's the thing I could never get right with my costume. I couldn't get them to stay out. All of them flopped for me.
It's just because it was brand new and I just stitched it.
This robe belongs to me.
Like, at one point you told me what it was made out of, and I completely forgot. I love that cloak. I love that suit.
Okay, so question also, why don't you go back to the friendly mutton chops?
I can't stand the mutton chops. That was Vansel's explicit.
Yeah.
I hate them. Everybody else thinks they're fabulous, and
they are fabulous.
I will do it again if I am playing the Bandit King in a movie, and otherwise, I don't need to do that again.
So we did a 70s party for something, and I actually put on the mutton chops for that. Shaved off the bit. I gotta say, that with the bell bottoms was pretty fly. It was
Stop killing him and let him finish talking.
So I've seen everybody else from the cast and things, except for the DM.
Merely all your worldly possessions.
As far as Matt, the GM, what about him? You haven't seen him in anything else?
No. Where did he go?
So he graduated shortly after this and went to law school in Boston. And he is now one of the world's foremost immigration attorneys in Boston.
Wow.
Matt Cameron, that's him right there. And he is over in Boston, sacrificing his life in many very real ways to spend all of his days trying to protect people from being shipped back with no due process and no rights back to countries that they came from where they're being hunted and killed. And he's kind of a hero of mine, and I spent a lot of time reading about him on Facebook, and he's been quoted by like the press quite a bit, and like NPR's called up and consulted with them because he's so eloquent and well-spoken in how he talks about immigrant rights and things like that. That he's
nice.
That's freaking awesome.
He teaches new law school classes. Really, really amazing guy doing amazing work. What's kind of fun too is he when we were first kind of getting fame with this and everything, there's some convention that was like in Jersey or something like that, and he was over there in Boston going to law school. And so Ben called him up and said, hey, they've got this thing, they want somebody to come down, would you mind going down? They'll like give you a hotel and feed you and stuff if you go down and premiere our film, show our film, and you can talk. It's like, yeah, that sounds great, I'll do that. And he gets down there, and they've set him up to GM an actual campaign. Because as the game master, they're like, we want to sell tickets. And they didn't like discuss this with him in advance. They just said, oh yeah, this will be great. I'm sure he'll do it. And he's like, so here's the thing, guys. I'm an actor. I'm the only person in the Gamers movie who's never actually done any role-playing games. And so he had like no idea what to do. He's never even played in a role-playing game. And there's a couple other small roles, but like he was playing the game master because he could act, and he was an interesting character that Matt wanted to use, and a friend of Matt's.
It's rough.
I just, I want to sidebar, I super love your fight choreography in the background where it's just like you and Nimble just 1, 2, 1. It's so good.
That was my fight choreography, what I could do given about 15 minutes to write it and create it and get it on tape.
Yeah. Well, it's just you in the background, so I honestly didn't notice it the first 3 times I watched the movie.
Yeah.
Who did the rest of the fight choreography?
The Wolbrechts did, and I forget who the other person was that worked with him on it.
Okay.
But Dave Wolbrecht did a lot of it. Steve Wolbrecht worked with him on it. You don't remember, Steve, there's a third person that was doing a lot of it with them.
I don't remember who it is. I know that Shimkus is one of the ones that helped out with later movies.
Yeah, well, he did the, each of the actors pretty much worked on the choreography for what they were involved in and helped
That's one of my other favorite gigs, the flop.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, we're getting our asses kicked. We're in a battle?
And there's Steve.
So,
Where am I? Right here. Can I go into Berserker Rage?
Yes, that was the Purple Ninja. I got to kill the Purple Ninja. One of my favorite moments.
But he's never been defeated.
Purple Ninja is kind of a recurring character of Vansel's that's in everything. And the joke is that he dies in everything. This was before South Park had Kenny, but it was the same joke, basically.
Yeah.
And the joke, of course, is that, he's the best and he's never defeated, and then every time he dies, and then next time you see him, he's alive again with no explanation.
He exists outside of time. I heard that somewhere. So. Silver Griffin asks, did anyone accidentally hit or hurt someone else in the scene?
No, I don't think there was any injuries that I remember on the gamers. We were all pretty safe about it. The actors had all done some combat choreography in their college classes, as had I, quite a few other people. So we had a lot of people that weren't experts, but knew enough to know how to be safe, and if we didn't make it look quite as good as we could have. This is before I took all of my actual training in martial arts and stuff like that. Got a lot better in combat choreography, but...
Were a lot of the extras just random SCA volunteers and stuff?
Yeah, I was actually an SCA guild that provided a lot of the bandits. The majority of the bandits were an SCA guild that came out to Sprinker Recreational Park and came out and joined us for a day, and we shot everything with the bandits in one day.
Oh, tight.
Nice.
Yep.
And this would be the part where my bow had just broken, on the previous day's shoot or 2 days before our shoot. And so we got a new bow, and I bought a bow custom for myself that I then brought in for Nathan to use, only it was a 55-pound bow, and Nathan couldn't draw it. And so all the shots are framed so that he's actually just pulling it this far, and you have a close-up on his face so you can't tell.
Awesome.
Rough.
Okay, did you ever face plant into the creek?
No, this was a one-take shot.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I was going to get all wet and everything, so it was one take.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rolling the dice, however, was not one take.
That's what I was going to ask. How many takes?
Yeah.
I think we rolled for about 20 or 30 minutes before we finally got 20. Right?
Yeah,
Law of averages, right?
We got a single 20 before that rolled right out of camera frame.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it was 70 or 80 rolls to get a second 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope that dice was
took a
thrown
long
away
time.
after that.
5% chance.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think it wouldn't take that long, yet somehow.
Maybe we should.
How many ones did you roll in that time, though?
Probably.
I don't know. We rolled it a whole bunch, and then we rolled a few other times where we just rolled some dice and kept rolling it. So we had B-roll of every die roll you could get of a close up from the table at one point, so we could go in and edit it. Not that we used most of them, but.
Can you believe this? He's missed the last 3 sessions.
We should kill his character.
Yeah, kill him. That'll teach him to interact with females.
Mm-hmm. Can you believe he would actually rather go out with a beautiful, intelligent young woman than hang out in this ass-filling basement with his best friends on a Friday night playing adventure games and having belching contests? And all for the off-chance he'll score, too. Can you imagine that?
I like the voice crack on that line. It just makes it.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of those. And it's like, yeah, you can't make that happen. It's just awesome.
Yeah. For a few hours until the forest
My helmet's too big. You can't script that. It just happens, and you got to keep it when it does.
As you exit the hills, the land slopes down before you. There, on the plain below,
So where is that part shot? The walking?
Great castle, sitting
This one's at Sprinker. The one crossing the log, I think we did that in. That's either up by Fort Nisqually in Point Defiance somewhere, or that's down in Oregon. Just off. I don't remember where in Oregon we were. It was just off the coast. There were some sand dunes right nearby.
Yeah.
And just we were like maybe 30 yards from sand dunes. Where we shot the campfire scene, and we shot some other stuff around there as well. This is actually a climbing wall thing at Sprinker Recreational Park.
Oh, cool!
The castle.
Is this your new character?
Yeah. You guys, please, I want you to roleplay this.
This is Sharon's favorite.
It is.
The last guys you met tried to kill you, and you're
This is another one of the tropes that we use in all our gaming sessions.
Yep. Same.
Hello.
Everyone does. You look like a trustworthy fellow.
I always have hated that particular concept, and so I've always tried to work around that either as a DM or as a player and stuff.
Yeah.
Me too, but it's still hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it still happens, even when you're trying not to. It still happens way too often.
Yeah.
Well, you remember when my character, when Alara got added to our party, Steve, and Sean was kind of like, well, you better come up with a reason to leave your entire family and kingdom behind and go traveling with this random group of adventurers that just showed up for the day. And I'm like, okay. And so I just decided my character had fallen in love with one of the humans in the party, and that became a defining character trait and part of the story from then on, because I didn't have any other reason to go with them.
I always just kind of hand wave it.
Yeah.
What's your strength?
This grate is actually one that we built in the back of Phil's truck on the way out to Sprinker while it was raining. Stopped by Home Depot, got a little bit of lumber and some rattle cans of paint.
They were painting it while we were filming the Bandit King sequences.
And you'll notice it's raining, and we were doing it in the rain, and it's like, oh man, this is...
Yeah, it kind of sprinkled the entire time that we were filming that. It wasn't so bad in the forest because the trees sheltered us enough you could barely tell, but when we came out to the wall, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then through the magic of cinema, as they go in, you will see us go from the outside of a rock climbing wall in Tacoma to the inside of a fort all the way up in Port Townsend.
Yep.
Oh yeah, first you have to have
This
the...
is added.
Yeah, it's way different.
Yep.
Well, is it safe?
It most assuredly is not.
So did you guys just film them a bunch, just walking random places and just cut it the way you liked? Okay,
Yeah,
just want to make sure.
Yeah.
It's that's the montage of traveling places kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yes, Nathan did his own sand person impersonation. That's not like the sound effect taken from Star Wars or anything. Nathan does a good
That is Nathan being Nathan.
Tusken Raider. Yeah. And Steven and Phil did the torches for all of this. Those
I was going to ask,
Yes.
those are really nice torches.
Yeah.
So their
It's
guards
experimenting.
got some tin, wrapped it around the top, and then wrapped it in burlap, and soaked it in paraffin wax.
Huh.
So we had a 5-gallon cooking pot of paraffin wax that we had melted, and about 30 or 40 of these torches, and we'd go ahead, soak them, pull them out, let them dry, and then they'd be burning them off, and they'd only last for a couple minutes, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why a lot of these shots are so short. But and then we'd go and soak them back in the paraffin so they could soak it up again, and they looked great though. I love the final effect.
Yeah.
They look so
Better
good.
than I had any right to.
They cast a lot more light than torches generally do.
Well, actually,
Really well.
there's a light that we were using. We had a couple of regular halogen work lights, like you can buy at Home Depot with the 500-watt halogen filaments. But the vast majority of what you see is just cranking the camera to the best low light setting and then actually filming it with the torches.
That's so cool.
I meant sneak down the hall.
So why didn't you sneak before?
Curie,
I shouldn't have to.
they just talked about it. Those torches were dipped in a paraffin wax and some other stuff that I wasn't paying attention to. But that's what was dripping, I assume.
Would be the paraffin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, a thief of my level wouldn't just walk blindly into a
God, this
Okay, the tin is what threw me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have.
What 3?
The tin. I didn't hear the tin rapping, and I was just like, burp, 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 burlap, burp, 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 wax, burp, burp, burp.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see the lighting here is pretty rough to even see it. Keep in mind, this was shot on a handy cam, like one of the ones you could pick up for $100 at Best Buy, in the 1990s. So it wasn't even really like it was VHS quality, basically, is what we were working with. And then it was shot 3:4 aspect ratio because it was still kind of common at the time. And then Ben actually went in and fixed a lot of the framing because he wasn't on site for a lot of this. He was on site for a couple of the shoots, but the framing and like the guy that was doing it wasn't really qualified to be filming. He'd been trained as an actor and liked cameras, and so he ended up doing it. This was just kind of a throwaway gig that Vancel wanted to do as a side project while we were in between Demon Hunters movies when this was being made.
Okay.
Huh.
You are still between Demon Hunters movies, I'd like to point out.
Right.
20 years running.
Three feature films, a whole other series, a TV series. Like, it's we haven't quite gotten back to the next Demon Hunters film yet.
Oh, I heard it's going to happen at some point, right?
Yeah, it's in process. I mean, the script is being written as we speak.
Don't would lie to me.
The script's been refined several times too. It's
So
we
it should be
wrote it
excellent.
and then went back and rewrote it later because we're waiting, and then went back and rewrote it again because we were still waiting, and then went back and rewrote it again because we were still waiting.
Well, there's also like 11 other scripts for Demon Hunters that happened beforehand too. So there's actually, if you watch the Demon Hunter Slice of Life, there's the Dwamarthrax one. Those are actual real scripts with real titles that Dwamarthrax is going through and throwing down onto the couch. But yeah, anyway, so this whole film was shot on this like super cheap Handycam on low resolution and everything, and Ben going through and recropping it to frame out the best parts of it, going in and learning about algorithms in order to like upsize the resolution without losing quality, figuring out, and then I went through and did all the color correction and figured out how to like adjust gain and settings in order to bring out a little bit more contrast and color, and did all the color timing because I'd studied that in college and did that for a photo lab when I first started working on these, and so we were quite proud when we were winning like cinematography and technical awards at film festivals and things like that for our Handycam work that basically was mostly created in the editing room.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I'm gonna prepare a spell.
Which one?
Polymorph other.
So is this the only time where the Cobbler's Crystals joke comes back outside of Demon Hunters?
Send Mark after him.
You'd have to ask Ben or Matt that. I have no idea.
Okay.
So I know it's been used other places, but I don't think it's made it into any of the other films.
Okay.
I feel like it's referenced in the other two Gamers films, but I'm not 100% sure. It'd be something like somebody's wearing the shirt in the background, or like has a can of Cobbler's Crystal sitting on a countertop in a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
It's always supposed to be subtle
I
and
think in two Christian's characters wearing a Cobbler's Crystals t-shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
For like that very first gaming scene,
How's a spell coming?
if I remember right.
The shadow steps forward.
We'll know next week.
Yeah, I'm just like, find out next
Tune
week.
in next time.
Combat rules state that the crotch is a vital area. If you hit an opponent in a vital area, he's stunned
So,
for one
was the
round.
DM
Called
in
shot to the nuts.
Demon Hunters?
Okay.
Is Matt in Demon Hunters?
Vancel?
He looked
No,
really
Cameron.
familiar to
Cameron.
me.
No, he's not.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't go to Holden Village. I think this was his only Dead Gentleman ZOE appearance.
Oh wow, that looks so good.
Oh, you haven't seen? Yeah, this was definitely director's cut.
Bring to me beer.
Modern technology.
Yeah. Before it was that weird glowy ball thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't know Latin, as Stephen is pointing out, the chant that he is casting for the transfiguration spell is Da Mihi Fermentum, which is Latin for beer meat.
Those things are dangerous.
Awesome. So, what are the chances in Demon Hunters 3 that Wolf gets revived?
I don't think that's happening. I haven't seen the script, though, so I don't know.
I can neither confirm nor deny whether Wolf may or may not be brought back. So it's at least the last version of that one that I saw was in hell.
Okay.
So there may be some allowance for people who have previously passed to come back.
Saying there's a chance.
The magic glow on the sword.
Oh, yeah.
About 3 days of Ben's time creating.
Ben, you're an insane man.
Old technology, man. The difference is today. Like, we literally, while we were working on this, at sometimes would just set something up, start to do an effect or something like that, do like one scene, set it to render so we could see how it looked, sleep under the desk for 3 or 4 hours while the computer rendered for like a 3-minute clip of video, and then wake up, go, nope, that looks awful, we need to redo the timing on that, or change the color, or shift it over 2 frames, and then, work for 2 hours and get it all adjusted where we think again, and then let it render for another 3 or 4 hours or overnight. It was crazy.
Yeah, so the $500 for the movie does not include the $3,000 that he spent on the computer.
Right.
So that he could edit it.
Okay.
Because that was the computer was purchased for Demon Hunters, so it's an editing computer that we used for Demon Hunters, a Mac with Final Cut, and we're able to use that.
1 to 2 gigabyte drive, which back in the day was truly epic.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, and the sting effect on the sword, I just want to point out, calling that a sting effect, that was our effect before the Lord of the Rings movies did it. They totally stole the idea.
Didn't the cartoon movie do the same effect?
It leads down into another dark corridor.
I don't know.
Oh. I mean, we got it on VHS.
Let's say no.
We do. Roll tape.
You'd have to look. I haven't actually ever seen it.
Roll tape!
We'll hold it up to the light and see.
An abrupt end, blocked by a door that leads further underground. A soft light is shining from underneath it.
Can we hear anything inside?
Worked so hard. This is the only real world shoot that I was involved in, because all the rest of the real world was filmed by the time I started working on it. Except for this sequence here, and so we worked so hard to try and hide all of the things that made it obviously you were in a dorm hallway in the scene. There's so much stuff that we had to like hide and mask and adjust angles. There's stuff behind Justin's head right now, like.
We'll see in a moment. Ready yourselves.
Nimble picks the lock.
And of course, all the body doubles.
Whoever's inside is talking.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually in California when we were shooting this part. This was the time frame that I actually went down there to work in computers. And if you realize when this was filmed, you'd know that that was very poor timing.
We've lost the surprise.
They know we're here.
Kill them.
But, yeah.
Kill them all.
Oh, nice.
I love the holding the arrow to the head.
It's so
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Yeah,
And
but
then
that's
it
part
moves
is
when
that
that bottle
bench,
hits
you
it.
can't tell they're body doubles. Like
Yeah?
those are not the regular actors.
No actors were harmed in the making of this film.
Clearly.
Forget the princess. What were these strange sorcerers? Amazing! My entire life is written here.
My intelligence is 4.
Outrageous! If Matt's character had survived, would he have hunted down and killed Mark?
I have tried to be nice, but you guys are so unfucking-believably noisy. Some of us
Mark's character.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Mark the character.
Ah, there we
Yeah.
go. Mark the Red.
Probably not. they killed them because they don't know who they were. They thought they were like changelings and sorcerers and stuff.
Yeah.
And not to give any spoilers away for later projects that you can catch on the Fantasy Network, but if you haven't seen the later Gamers films and series, some of what kind of happens from then on it gets answered and makes more sense.
I mean, and we may watch some of them later if that's okay. We'll find out.
Because we see Mark later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And his particular trauma.
It's a whole lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay!
Matt Shimkus.
Yes.
His amazing hat.
Nathan Rice with the beard.
And Phil Price, who looks about 6 months younger than he does now.
Yeah.
Listen here, pot calling the kettle black.
Well,
you fey monsters, like never aging.
Duke doesn't look too much older either. He's also aged very, very gracefully.
if you saw me around this time before I grew the beard, I've always looked really young. So when I was like 23, I got carded going to a rated R movie. So they didn't believe I was 17.
Although I think your eyelashes have gotten shorter.
Bar patron, there I am.
Look at that guy.
Bar patron.
Wow.
Bar patron. I like guy without pants better.
To work with.
Yeah, I like pants guy a little bit better.
Oh, Bandit King.
Oh, that guy too.
Like the body doubles are named.
Yeah.
And yeah, somebody said in chat they didn't understand why Gamers 1 and 2 are not in the same universe. They are. They're completely in the same universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's what the question is reversed. I never understand why Gamers 1 and 2 are in the same universe.
And
no. They're completely in the same universe for a variety of reasons. The concepts of what Matt was playing and everything and developing at that time were all kind of
yes,
newish. But it's very much set in the same universe. It's different characters entirely, but they're centered around because they killed off the main members of the cast. This
Great Clan Rokugan is a unicorn.
as Mark, and talks about the incident. They say, "Oh, total party kill," and he says, "Like you have no idea." He's actually referring to coming back and finding his party, his players all dead, and the GM dead. So that's all set in the exact same real.
Yeah. Yep. And Matt's done some other stuff outside of the Gamers world, which ties the Gamers, Demon Hunters, and all the other stuff that he's done into one giant pan, for lack of a better way to say it.
Yeah, there's a whole
there's a book on that
whole universe of stuff that are in interconnected worlds, and so Farther All is where the Gamers is set, and the Gamers sequels, and Journey Quest, although they are thousands of years apart in the timeline. And there's ways to move between like the Demon Hunters world and Farther All.
Yes.
So you have to read. So Steve and I are bad people to talk about this because we both have spent enough time around Vancel with him telling us stuff that is in his ideas and that he wants to do eventually and things like that. So we actually have a bunch of like spoiler concepts. His recent book that came out, The Stray in the Hole in the Stars.
Stray in the Hole in the Stars, yeah.
That just came out. When I read it, it was about a character that I had originally in Matt's Dream World been cast as when I was like 23, and could never play it now because I'm too old. But that character that he wrote, I'm reading this novel that's about that character, and I've heard all these stories about the character, and I realized when I finished the novel, this is a prequel to a bunch of stories that I already know, but this takes place before all that happened.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So, yeah, Smidgen Warrior Queen of Venus is one of my personal favorites. So Matt Vancel actually had a dog, a cockapoo, half Cocker Spaniel, half Poodle, little tiny thing about yay big, whose name was Smidgen, and she acted like she was the queen of everything. So Smidgen, Warrior Queen of Venus, is I've met her.
Stop. Yep.
That's adorable.
Yeah. It's really hard to kind of parse what I know that has not been entered into canon yet.
Yeah.
Well, people would
Steven's
have to
worse.
go through everything that's been published and made in order to find out. So, have at
That
guys.
is true. That is true. Yeah. And it's funny. There are things that people are catching that even Vancel forgot that he tied together at some points too. So there's lots of hidden treats out there.
Well, it's been 20 years. I can't say I blame him.
Yeah.
Well, and these are concepts that he was working on when we were back in high school, even before that. So
wow,
a lot of this has had a lot of time to ferment and.
Well, and as he's went to film school and studied screenwriting, and as he went through life and had other life experiences, and looked at different ways of looking at things, the details have changed as to what is canon and not, and he's taken stuff that had originally been planned and restructured it too. So sometimes it's stuff that Steven and I know about from stories that he's told us that it's like, oh, you changed which character that happens to, or things like that.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of other stuff that it's like he wrote it in his mind as a book. It later, then once he started filming, he's like, wow, I could not film that. That is an unfilmable scene. So he's had to go back and rewrite a lot of stuff. But now technology and special effects are swinging back the other way, and it's like, oh, maybe we can have that back in, where they get stuck in the middle of the floor. Right, and that's it's interesting to see those types of evolutions, as well as he's tried to bring it into the filmable realm, and as the filmable realm has then evolved over the last 20 years as well.
Because he started as a writing, he wanted to write books. He was going to write novels when he was in high school and college.
Yeah,
and then Ben
in those for children's books.
Yeah, and then he met Ben, and Ben was like, "Hi, I'm a film major," and Vancel was like, "We don't have a film department at PLU. What?" And Ben's like, I know, but I could go to school for free here, and I couldn't go to school where there's a film department, so I'm making my own major. And you're a really good writer. I read a couple of your things, and I want you to write me a film. And Vince was like, okay. And
that
Demon Hunters was born.
Like Ben. That sounds exactly like Ben.
Right? That's how it all started.
Yeah.
This would have happened if Ben wasn't like, okay, how do I get the hell out of Indiana to someplace better and go to school with not having to pay for it, because his dad worked at a Lutheran college in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And so they had an exchange thing, and so he didn't have to pay to go to PLU, but PLU didn't have a film department. So he went in and said, could I make a film major and take this class and that class, and take a class in Latin over here and a class in whatever
out for him,
and they made a major, and he was the first ever film major at PLU. I don't know if they ever made a film department after that, but the theater department has grown substantially. They have a huge theater department there now.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, last week, Jimmy was telling us that Ben invented crowdfunding and went and collected money door to door for a camera, to film Demon Hunters with.
Yep, that's where that $3,000 for the camera and the editing station came from. Was they did crowdfunding with all of the students on campus, and so there's tons of people that donated $5 or $10 to do that in 1997, something like that.
Yeah, 97 or 98. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, back in the day.
So what do we know about revamping Doyle? I've never heard of this thing.
So when
I like that reaction. That's really reassuring.
It's weird.
So,
I watched it earlier today.
Revamping Doyle holds a very special place in my heart. One of the things it did for me was introduce me to Chris Odie, who was, and if it weren't for Revamping Doyle, Chris probably would not be part of ZOE today. This film was basically Don Early was bored because he wasn't involved in making the Gamers movie, and we weren't working on a new Demon Hunters or anything at that point, and he wanted something to do, and he had an idea for this revamping Doyle story, and he gave it to Vansel, and he said, I can't write, will you write me this story? And Vansel wrote him up a short screenplay. And he kind of went, okay, who's not super busy right now with gamer stuff? Because a lot of the principal photography had wrapped, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, and wants to help make this. And so there's a bunch of us who were like, yeah. And I was like, I want to do camera work. Like, I would love to do camera work. I studied this in college. I've done a 1 minute long short film, and that's all the work I've done on camera. And so I want to do more camera work. And so I ended up as DP, and Stephen
I always try this acting. That looks like it's fun.
Well, and Stephen was always the first thought and the intended role for the vampire hunter character was there. I guarantee both Vansel and Dawn had in their mind that it was always going to be Stephen when they were writing it because it fit him so perfectly. And then we actually had to go out and find someone to cast as the main vampire. I think Jen Page helped with that because Jen Page and a friend of hers, Jamie, were heavily involved in it. They show up as a couple of characters very briefly, but they're heavily involved in putting it together and helping produce it, behind the scenes stuff as well. And so they were the ones who found the gentleman whose name I can't even remember right now that played Doyle. And Chris was the obvious choice as he was considering becoming a psychologist at that point in his college career. And so he was an easy choice to be a psychologist. So we kind of put it together on I don't even remember what we had for a budget, but I think Dawn and I each put in about $150 and got everybody else to volunteer everything and made a movie.
All right. I'm going to hit play on this.
I was like, and with that intro.
We're going to see what we can see.
So, first question right off the bat, where was this beginning scene filmed?
This was so much fun and took so much work. My dear friend Troy Neri helped me put this all together, and we had about half the people you see in the background here are friends of mine and Troy's from high school that are in the sequence, and we had this kind of poor man's steady. There's the director and Evan Shimona, who's heavily involved behind the scenes work, and
a couple more people.
My friend Greg, whose stepdaughter is now in my classes at Soda, and did this whole Steadicam thing, and we did about 3 takes. This was at the Elks Club, which has since been torn down in Tacoma. They had this nice restaurant, and we went in and talked to them and kind of explained what we were doing, and as long as we were not, using foul language or being, showing them in any poor light or anything like that, they were happy to give us the space and let us use the restaurant on a day it was closed. And so we had about 6 hours, 8 hours to film the sequence, which was barely enough.
Oh, that's Jamie. I never noticed that before.
Yeah. Yep, Jamie's in this one.
Yeah, it's a small world, Tacoma.
It really is.
So, I'd like to point out that this only took about 20 years for me to realize that she's in this movie. She's one of the people I game with on a fairly regular basis. So,
because there's the exterior of what's supposed to be that restaurant.
Right, that's the Elephant and Castle in downtown Seattle, so we got permission to film there as well. But the interior didn't work, and they don't really close in the same way. So we were filming at 1 o'clock in the morning as they were closing the restaurant and everything to get just the outside portion of the restaurant, which was a great shoot, a lot of fun. I think it was while working on this that my now wife decided that she was going to try and date me.
How'd it go?
Worked out. 17 years later.
Oh wow, she threw him far.
She's pretty badass. I don't remember what her name was either. She's somebody else that we actually did auditions for and cast.
So how was that shot done?
Really old school tech. Basically, we locked the camera down and shot him rolling out and in the street and standing up, and ran at him with 2 par cans. Gail was holding one. I don't know. Steven might have been holding another. I don't remember who was there. Whoever's holding, probably Troy, actually. And they ran at him so that the headlight effect appeared on his body. And then we took him out of the frame, left the camera in the exact same pace, and waited for a bus to drive by.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Then we overlay it, and at the moment he gets hit, it's a little bit of digital work of just kind of like he kind of jumps backwards, and we just take that piece of the frame and pull it further back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is the scene where I actually met Mark, because Mike Botorf had brought me out to help run Boom with Corey, I think it was, who was running the Boom mic.
That sounds right.
And so I was assisting him, and Mark just jumps out of a tree as he's up there stretching, and I'm like, "What?
Okay,
What's going on?" They're like, "That's just Mark. He does that type of thing." Like, how does that make any sense?
That was the worst pun I have ever heard. Not that I'm criticizing or anything.
So, Curl wants to know. Is it Curie?
Curie.
Okay. From the chat wants to know. It looked easy, but I know it wasn't. How many takes was that series of punches?
Whoa, just a second. I didn't bite anybody.
The Elephant Castle. I think we had 3 or 4 takes to work from. Like we did it again, but they were both really good. I worked with them quite a bit rehearsing it. We rehearsed it a lot. And I did a lot of the stunt and choreography work on this. But I don't think we had a bad take with them. I think maybe we had one bad take where he dodged the wrong way or something, and so it was kind of an obvious, clear miss that should have been a hit. But I don't know. They did about 6 or 7 rehearsals. We did some time with them doing rehearsal before we went on to location, just a couple hours one day, and then it was pretty straightforward.
By which you project those feelings.
I like the costuming detail of just the tire marks on his shirt, like both in this scene and in the.
He projected me through a window once.
Yep, we actually took his shirt off and ran over it a few times.
Yeah. Practical effects are always best.
Yep.
So,
yes.
what is in his?
They take a lot less time.
Although it did make it hard because we had to shoot a lot in order or like change the costume. So I think we ended up mostly shot in order, but 2 separate parts. So we ended up with 2 different shirts that we had to use. For our like $200 budget, like a third of it going to shirts.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if we could get away filming this the way we did back then, because that was actually a real shotgun. Non-functional, but
wow.
Yeah, I don't know that would fly these days.
Probably not. You hear Demon Hunter sound?
Yeah, no. Demon Hunter Blues, so good.
Such a great song. I love
It
that song
is
so
so
much.
good.
Yeah.
There's Jen Page, and her friend Jamie.
Yeah. And Kevin.
Yep, Kevin. Kevin is the stage manager for the opera, so I've worked with him closely quite a bit in the last 6 years.
Wait, hold on. Is it?
Yeah, that's Kevin.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Madeleine,
who's the costume designer for Tacoma Opera, has also worked with Kevin.
When I was watching it earlier, I'm like, that guy looks familiar.
Sounds like you don't appreciate us setting you up like this.
Yeah.
He has hair.
A lot of character.
And yes, Silent Jim is in the background. That's correct.
Well, at least I get to end it in the company of my friends. It's reassuring to know you guys are around.
We've all had moments like that.
Where we realize we're talking to an empty soda bar.
Yeah.
It's what's the bar's name? Do you remember the bar up in Capitol Hill?
It was the Vogue.
The Vogue, that's it, yeah.
Oh.
It is no longer around. It was a kind of a goth rave bar.
Oh,
so it's fairly appropriate for the
goth rave gay bar.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Do I really have to point out you have reason painted on the side of that sledgehammer? Please. No? If I understand you correctly, you see yourself as a vampire.
It's so smooth right there.
A creature people are unable to relate to.
I like the lava
You feel
lamps.
undead.
It's real good.
Anytime you
Gonna
can
make
deal
it.
with people's at night.
That's all part of the bar. We didn't do it.
Yeah, that is actually what it looked like. Rails and everything. I mean, it was.
You let the
Yeah.
rejection happen, and then you punish yourself with the vampire hunter who knows how to hurt you best. From our discussion, I'm beginning to believe he would disappear if you were a better vampire.
Yeah, Jen Page started with the gamers, the original gamers. She was just all behind the scenes, except she shows up somewhere.
Wasn't she the
Where's
barmaid?
In the gamers, right?
It's a
Jen Page, I thought she was the
think
barmaid.
she's the barmaid in the first game.
Oh yeah, she's the barmaid. Yeah, she's the barmaid that Hunk throws off of his lap.
How can I
Yeah.
And then of course she was in the same situation, was working a lot behind the scenes with us, as well as having the cameo as the vampire lady.
It's just another excuse, Doyle.
And then Camille was also in the bar scene of that first one.
So, fun fact, that's not actually the train. I think that's the ferry.
Don't walk away from an easy.
I think that's coming from our end, and that's the ferry.
You really think I should do this?
Continue to drink, though. By all means.
Yeah.
Do we need to name the ferry?
The ferry?
It has a name.
If we're streaming from our
Very
house for much longer, we probably should.
So the day didn't end well?
Oh, that's right. Emily's the second therapist.
In front of a bus.
Yeah. Super fast.
I think it was die fast. I can't even read it.
I know. I'm like, every once in a while I'll catch a name. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But by that point in time, it's already off the screen.
I don't know why it goes so
idea
fast.
Kevin was in that. Oh, that's gonna.
That was delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. We ended up never really finding a distribution for it, and that's why it was just kind of added on this as a special.
And I don't remember what exactly happened in the course of events. Like Don got involved in Gamers 2 or something like that, but we got most of it in the can. We didn't have the scene outside with the shotgun in the can. We had everything else filmed, and we couldn't get everybody's schedules together, and that didn't end up happening. So that's when we brought Mike Bottorff on to help produce it, and he brought in Bryce and everything. And so then we did the one-day shoot to make that all work, got everybody back together, got filmed. By that time, I was really heavily involved in something else. I don't remember if I had just taken the TD position at the theater. And so I had been producing a lot of the stuff before that point, but I wasn't really involved in the post-production process as a result. And so it took a little while, and Don was never really quite happy with it. There was some stuff that we kind of compromised and some stuff that we cut because we didn't get it really filmed properly. And so the script ended up about a minute shorter than it was originally, minute and a half shorter, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot when it's only what is that, 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think it's like 8.5 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was originally about 10 or 12 minutes, and there's a couple bits that we cut out, and Don was just never really happy with the end product, and his kind of taste in his own choices as a director and stuff, and what he decided he wanted to do had changed. And so it took him a while before he finally kind of put it together, and we ended up putting it on the director's cut of the Gamers when we made the second release of the Gamers film.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of learning going on for a lot of people during these.
Yeah, I mean that's what it was in a lot of ways. It was intended as a learning project for all of us. It was, I'm trying to remember. I think this was my first DP credit, and then I did Cherry Sorbet afterwards, which I won some awards for. And then I got too busy doing theater and stopped doing camera work for the most part.
Yeah.
Question for you,
So
Steve.
I think Go ahead.
What's your favorite sandwich?
I'm a big fan of Philly cheesesteak.
It's the best.
So, what exactly was painted on your face in revamping Doyle?
Alpha and Omega.
Alpha and Omega.
Okay, because I could never make out what was on the non-camera side cheek.
Yeah, the left cheek was almost always in the 3/4 profile, so
Yeah.
it just looked like an A and a loopy thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it makes sense it was Alpha Omega. looked at it. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And that was not my real beard. This beard is much more
lustrous. This beard is thick and full.
Makes great mutton chops, though.
It's true. Mark.
Although I have been threatened with getting kicked out of the house if I ever do mutton chops again. So
I have made a similar threat.
See, Gail asked me on my way here whether or not I was gonna shave it into the mutton chops.
You so should have.
You should have.
Yeah.
So
I'm always looking for an excuse to do mutton chops, just because. Which is why I really like the '70s thing. It's like I could get away with mutton chops there. It's part of the costume. But the problem with mutton chops is then I have to shave, and then I look 12 years old. So
yeah. Well, it's like me playing Bruno. Is if I actually shave the way Bruno would probably be clean shaven, it does not help with making me look older. So.
So, question from chat. Who came up with that cologne sketch?
Cologne sketch.
I'm also at a loss, but I figured I'd read it and we could talk about it instead of me typing. So, logarithm? Question mark?
What cologne sketch?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That's what it's referring to, yeah.
The Dead Gentleman Presents. Was that supposed to be a larger project? Or was it just kind of a way to get your sketches that you did outside onto something?
It was a sketch. So the idea was, at the time that we were doing this and the gamers and everything, we put together the company, and there was, probably 30 people involved in the original 3 Dead Gentleman projects, 4 if you count Doyle. And all of those people had some investment, some interest in it. It was all volunteer work, either college students or people like myself, just a couple years out of college, that were doing it to learn, to have fun for various reasons. Some of them because they were actors and wanted places to act. Some of them just were interested in filmmaking. And I realized as we were finishing up editing and working on the Gamers film that we had a product here that was going to sell and that could make a company, make an actual functioning business. And so I talked Ben and Matt and Don and everybody into turning it into a company. And we said, let's filter out some of the people by saying, if you want to be part of the company, you have to show that you care about it more than just going, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. And so we just had, at the time, which was a lot of money for a bunch of people just graduating from college, everyone had to invest $100. And so we had 17 people that invested the initial $100, which I can happily say after 15 or 20 years of getting hit hard on my taxes for owning part of a company that was losing money. I sold, and Steve at the same time, we sold to Zombie Orpheus our shares in the original Dead Gentleman. And I think we sold it for $400 or $500 for our share after 15 years of investment and putting in time and effort.
More than that.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Something like that.
I don't remember. Yeah.
But so while we were in the process of trying to create that company, and we were got an office space to work in with an editing station and a shipping area, and we got a company to make a bunch of VHSs and DVDs of the Gamers, and I put together the graphics for the covers and things like that, and we were making it all ourselves and shipping it out ourselves and doing all the work from our office downtown on what is now the UW-Tacoma campus. UW-Tacoma actually owned the property and was our landlord at the time, but it was not a classroom at that point. And we had a space that was like a creative table space where we would have the writer's room kind of meet and work on developing ideas, and everyone was trying to come up with what we were doing next. And so Dead Gentleman Improv, which later became the Gamers Live team, and the writer's room and the Dead Gentleman Presents projects were both parts, spin-offs of the writer's room to help flesh out and develop ideas, to put something out that our fans could find while we were taking 3 years to make the Gamers, and then even longer to make the Gamers Darkness Rising, and that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of different aspects to trying to do that and get 17 people involved in trying to do something and help the company keep moving forward while we all had full-time jobs and weren't getting any money out of it. And that too.
Is there anything referencing Cologne? We're looking at the
sketch
sketches
index of the Dead Gentleman Presents on this DVD.
Yeah.
Because I know there's the 6 episodes of Dead Gentleman Presents, and then the a bunch of sketches, behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, so about the time that I and Steven and Phil and several others of us kind of were too busy with our real lives and had some other things that we needed to deal with, and so we kind of stepped back from general operations and management of Dead Gentleman was when a lot of that was happening. So some of that I was there for, some of that Steve might have been there for, but a lot of it that was kind of during the creation and right after filming for the Gamers Darkness Rising, and it happened, but we didn't have anything product-wise to present. So most of those, I'd have to look at them all. There's a couple of those that I was around for filming, but most of those were I was around and read scripts and read treatments and gave feedback and stuff like that. But by the time they actually went out and filmed them, I was in a full-time job working 70 hours a week as the TD at a very rapidly growing theater out in Bremerton. And it took a couple years, 3 or 4 years of that before I had free time to do anything except for work at the theater there.
Yeah, this is about the time that I actually went back to school. So yeah. I was one of the few that hadn't gone to college right out of high school. So while everyone else at PLU was students, I was off actually working a job. And about the time that they were doing a lot of this is when I actually did go back to school. So I know a lot of these from the standpoint of talking to Vancel about, jokes and ideas, and Elkwater Ale, the breakaway guardrails guaranteed to break away. There's a lot of those that we had talked about, but Tub Time with Dawn, but I was never around for the actual filming or any of that.
Yeah, Tub Time with Dawn was filmed fairly early. I don't remember exactly where that falls time-wise, but I know we shot it at the house that Dawn lived in and was roommates with Chris Odie and Ann Colunium. I know where that was filmed, and they weren't living there for that much longer after college, so that was filmed pretty early on. I don't know that we knew what to do with it for a while.
Yeah.
Curie asks, back to school, ? What year was it?
So I went back to school in 2002, 2003.
It's not so bad.
No. It took me 7 years to get my 2-year degree.
Not so
but
bad.
then only 3 years to get my 4-year degree, and get 2 of them at that. So
nice.
Yeah. That's what happens when you're working full-time trying to go to community college on the side.
True.
1 class here, 1 class there. It makes it a little bit more difficult.
Steve was the one who broke my brain when I was like, oh yeah, math is math. 2 plus 2 is always 4. Then he looked at me dead in the eye. And he was like, but it's not. And then was it cyclical number? What did you say?
So there's it is clock arithmetic basically. So it's cyclic arithmetic. So it's things like, what is 7 plus 7? Well, if you're talking about a 12-hour clock cycle, 7 plus 7 is actually 4 or 2. 7 plus 7 is 2. See, I'm great at math, horrible at arithmetic. But the engineering side of me also goes, well, 2 plus 2 also equals 3 for small values of 2 and large values of 3. But
and then I was upset with math. It was the one thing I could depend on.
Is that big in The Incredibles too? Where he's like, no, math is math.
A full year of senior level math where we went from the proof of 1 plus 1 equals 2 all the way through to a rigorous proof of calculus. Real analysis. It's a very fun course. I would highly recommend it if anyone enjoys getting their math brain. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
You like math?
To give you an idea of what
kind of prove 1 + 1 = 2. There's no other number it could equal. It only equals 2.
So to give you an idea of what kind of geek Steven is, if you haven't figured this out, when I was first gaming with him and he was like not yet in school, he built a massive like multi-page Excel database spreadsheet system and put all of the 3.5 rules for
3.0 because I had to rebuild it when 3.5 came out. Yeah.
And built all of the rules into it so that like you could go in and like say, okay, my character is now wearing a glove that gives him a +1 bonus to these things or whatever, and it would auto update your character and make all the adjustments so that all of your roles and everything would appear on that first page of the Excel spreadsheet.
4 levels of cleric and 3 levels of barbarian. So this is all of my stats and attributes. It was a massive spreadsheet, especially for back in early 2000.
So how many games would you have to play to make back that time investment?
Oh, it's not about the making back the time investment. It's about finding all the little ways that I can break the system.
Why?
So.
See, there's what kind of geek Steven is right there. He doesn't lose any time doing that. That was his fun project.
Yeah. So I also built a spreadsheet for Rogar, my dwarf barbarian Rogar, so that I could fine-tune the amount that I dumped into power attack as we're going up against someone. So a 17 hits. So that's what I want. And it would calculate the probabilities, average damage, and everything else, and there you go. And this is all before I went back to school. And
nerd.
Rogar,
heck yeah, king nerd.
Rogar who wore a jumpsuit of rhino skin armor with a giant horn coming out the front of his in a jumpsuit that like the thing came over like this and had the horn coming out of it and would just like charge into like masses of orcs and things.
Okay,
it was fabulous.
Question from chat. When was the original Journey Quest shot compared to the original Gamers?
Several years. So basically, Gamers was filmed in like 2003, 2004, something like that. Again, this is part of the history of the company. What's that?
Which Gamers?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, the original Gamers was 2000, right?
Yeah. Original Gamers.
And so we then started working on Gamers Darkness Rising. Matt wrote it up. We developed it. Turned out beautifully. Had plans and everything. Got all ready to film and didn't get our producing act together and had to postpone shooting because we didn't have the money yet. We had the investors but hadn't like figured out how to structure it all. Postponed shooting. Got held off for 6 months. 6 months later, we were about ready to film, and we had like one location that wasn't working or some sort of issues, and everybody kind of freaked out and panicked and canceled filming again. And then by the time that they actually started filming, I'd kind of stepped back at that point, and through a variety of issues and con artists and people taking advantage and people making mistakes and stuff, it kind of went into the Hollywood world, and a lot of the gamer stuff got taken away. They edited it. There's a whole lot of really unfortunate and complicated stories, but basically,
John and Vancel were both down in California.
Well, that's when they went to California, and Matt went back to film school, and Ben was doing some film school stuff and doing some other things, and was working with other companies and trying to make a career working in independent film in Seattle, which at the time was not an imaginary thing. There was actually a film industry in Seattle at that point in time, and so Ben was doing a lot of first AD and editing work and stuff like that. And nothing was really happening for a while. And Ben and Matt were really frustrated. And so when Matt got done with school, we still didn't have a product that we could send out to anyone as Dead Gentlemen. And they were really frustrated and felt like having a film company run by 17 people, of which only about 6 were really invested in it, wasn't a functional system. But more so, Hollywood and the current independent film state was not a functional system for distributing and making money in the film industry unless you were willing to go schmooze and make a Hollywood film. And so Ben really got into the idea of finding alternate ways to do distribution. got together with a couple of his friends like Andy Doporowski and created ZOE. And ZOE was created initially as a distribution warehouse and a way to distribute films and get films out there for other small film companies like Dead Gentleman. And in that process, as they created it and said, okay, now we've got the control, it was kind of interesting because Matt being a founding member of both and Ben being a founding member of both companies, but a bunch of us not being part of ZOE at that point in time, they created Journey Quest. Journey Quest and Gamers, despite both being in Fartherall, originally the intellectual property rights of the Gamers were Dead Gentleman's, and the intellectual property rights of Journey Quest were Zoe's. And so there's kind of this weird situation with that, but basically both companies were involved in making Journey Quest, but it was a good, I'd have to look and see what year it was because I wasn't involved. I didn't know Journey Quest was even being made until it had already been filmed and was in the can. So I had some involvement in, I can't even remember. I've done a little bit of color correction and a little bit of editing stuff to help Ben out on various projects, including like Gamers Darkness and Hands of Fate. But I can't even tell you because it'd always be like, you know, I'd check in and see how Ben was doing or talk to somebody and Ben would be like, I've got this horrible editing project. I have to do all this color correction. And I'm like, hey, I got a couple days off. Let me come help you. So I couldn't tell you exactly when Journey Quest was filmed, but it was at least 5 years after the original Gamers.
Yeah, it was a bit later.
Oh yeah, Humans and Households. And
House Rules that's never come out.
House Rules. Well, House Rules is out. It's on DVD.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on
Wow.
Fantasy Network too. Yeah, House Rules. That was a lot of fun. That was around the same time. That was.
That's
after
another one of the
Gamers,
ones that we did in the interim while we were working on it.
Mm-hmm. That was a blast.
I remember House Rules.
History of DG Zoe. That would be complicated.
Yeah.
But it would make an amazing documentary.
Oh, yeah.
True.
That's kind of fun.
The gamers behind gamers.
That's not bad. Not a bad idea. You gonna direct it, Bryce?
Sure.
All right. Well, now it's a project.
Yeah.
So I need a camera and I need
Everyone
candid
heard
interviews.
It's gonna happen.
All right. Well, I have a side project. I'm not doing anything else. I'm in quarantine, so.
It'll air in 12 parts on Zoe Game Night.
12 parts Zoe Game Night.
In like 8 years.
Yeah.
In 8 years. Don't worry about it. It's coming, guys. You heard it from me. It's not coming.
Yeah, technically, I think House Rules is the only non-hop jockey thing that Dead Gentleman has ever made because that was before Zoe. But I can't think of anything else that DG has made as opposed to Zoe that isn't in the hop jockey universe. Because like Metaverse, of course, is all, and DFA and stuff is all part of Zoe and not a Dead Gentleman project.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Demon Hunter's role-playing game and the Demon Hunter's role-playing game video and all the other things that were going on back then are all set in the Demon Hunter's world, which is all part of the Hop Jockey universe as well.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay,
Everything,
guys.
Demon Hunters, everything, Journey Quest, everything Gamers exists in the one world.
Or one universe.
One universe. Sorry, yes.
All right, guys. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we've held these guys up enough. So, give it a second, see if Chet has anything to say. But I want to thank you guys for coming out, watching the Gamers with us, and revamping Doyle.
Yes.
It was fun. I love the behind-the-scenes information because it does help to fill in so many things.
Curie, next week we are going to be watching Gamers too, so if you want to reserve your question for people who are who worked on that movie, then you might get a better answer.
No, these two might have worked on it.
Maybe. I don't know.
Did you have your guests lined up yet?
I haven't actually met anybody, so...
We are going to be contacting people and asking, so maybe. We have no one lined up as of yet. We'll let you know as soon as we know, okay?
Okay.
Because if not, I mean, what are you guys doing next week?
Well, I mean, pretty much from now on. So like, as I was just talking about this, but in Discord, I was just mentioning that Christian Doyle, Scott Brown, and Brian Lewis were all working on the Three Musketeers at Lakewood Playhouse with me. They were Athos, Porthos, and D'Artagnan. And
I want to see that so bad.
I went to them because I was heavily involved working on setting up things for Dead Gentleman at the time. And so I went to them and said, you guys are all fabulous and you're fun to work with. You all need to go audition. Here's, can I get your emails? I'll send you an email, or here's a flyer or something like that. I forget what I did. And I said, you guys need to go audition for this film we're making. It'll actually have money. We'll pay you a little bit for it. Not much. But and they did. They got some money for it. They got an initial payment of like $50 or something like that, and then now they're getting their residual checks and I think they've gotten each like $1 at this point. But they of course all became very heavily a part of ZOE at that point, and hadn't even heard of us until I was like, hey, you guys need to go audition for this. It's like, what is this? It's like, it's a film company. You guys would fit right in and come work with us. And from that point on, Christian in particular, as well as the other two, became such a key part of ZOE that I would say I don't think there's a project that Christian wasn't massively involved in from here on out. So he would be an easy person to have talk about any of these, whichever ones you want to do, because ZOE kind of became his life from that point. And just because he happened to be in the Three Musketeers at Lakewood Playhouse.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely be checking in with a bunch of different people and seeing who we can get to come on. And it seems like we're out of questions. Yeah. And that's fine, because there's always time next week.
Tomorrow, is the game planned for tomorrow going to be up, Mark?
For tomorrow, yeah, it's 6 o'clock. Is my understanding is that we are doing a show at 6 o'clock, but I have not actually heard what the show is or what we're doing yet.
Surprise show tomorrow, 6 o'clock.
I'm gonna look at Discord right now and see. Oh yeah, hey, I have information. Look at that.
Hey.
Okay, said too.
D&D 5e.
Nice. Okay.
Crawl Royale.
Ooh.
What that means.
I don't know
Crawl
either.
Royale.
But AK just said that it's Ethan running a game for Christian, Maggie, and James, and maybe more.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, Ethan will be the GM. Christian, Maggie, James are on it. I don't know if anyone else is for sure, but those three are involved in the game. And it will be live streamed from the studio to ZOE Twitch tomorrow at, I believe, 6 p.m.
Right.
Excellent. And
That's my plan. So
Monday, there's more Metaverse stories?
Actually, we're going back to regular old Metaverse. We're going to be back into the stories of Metaverse. It'll look a little less flashy than what we usually have for you guys, just because everybody's having to Skype in, and so we've got changing lighting conditions and bad cameras and all that kind of stuff. So it won't be quite as pretty as you're used to, but we will be telling the Metaverse story, and we'll be Skyping in a lot of the main cast from all over the place. Starting on Monday, we'll have sliders. I have to figure out what the graphics are going to look like for that still. I haven't come up with anything that I like, so if you have ideas, let me know. But so we'll be doing that on Monday and continuing the story of Metaverse in Masters of the Metaverse, Dreams and Nightmares.
Ooh.
That all starts on Monday.
Excellent. And then, because we now have a show every weekday.
Yeah, every weekday.
So Tuesday is the Demon Hunters game, the RPG.
And that's not till 6:30, just to be aware.
Dead Gentleman game night. That's what it is.
Yes.
Dead Gentleman game night starts at 6:30, which is usually going to be Demon Hunters role-playing game. Although Don's got Masters of the Metaverse and possibly Transformers and things like that lined up eventually.
Yeah.
But it'll all be role-playing games, primarily focused around Dead Gentleman products.
And then Wednesday is Rolling with the Odies, which seems to be like a home stream. Last night they played Mario Kart.
Yep. And that started at like 4:30 and did some testing and stuff. So Chris is just like, hey, I've got time to go live and talk to people, so I will. So you may see him at other times as well, in addition to around 6 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Excellent.
That's a lot of shows throughout the week, guys.
Yeah. And all we needed was a global pandemic to get them going.
Man, it's weird.
Everybody not able to do their regular work.
Like, thanks, Corona. All right, guys. Well, that's about it for us. So, as always, I want to say thanks for being here. Can't do this without you guys. And stay safe, play games, and wash your hands. Good night, everyone.
Good night.